out. I can't recall the last time you held me above your head. I'm just glad that I know that you did. I've looked and never found a weekend. So I wanna be that kind of man. And that's why when you promise me the moon, I still hold out my hand. I've looked and never found a weekend. So I wanna be that kind of man. And that's why when you promise me the moon, I still hold out my hand. Baby, it's hard being still and calm. Daddy's breath against my forehead, lifted high upon your shoulders. I wonder if it was me that weighed your shoulders down.
You're listening to WCHQ-LP, Louisville, Kentucky. 100.9 FM, Crescent Hill Radio. All local, all community, all the time. WCHQ gets support this hour from DK Insurance Services, LLC, specializing in business insurance in the Louisville area, but also writing home, auto, and life insurance. Licensed in Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee. More information can be found at dkinsurance.net or by calling 502-968-9874. WCHQ gets support from North End Cafe, Louisville's fine diner. Open 7 days a week, serving breakfast, brunch, lunch, and dinner. 2 locations in Louisville, Frankfort Avenue in Crescent Hill, and Bardstown Road in the Highlands. More information can be found at northendcafe.com.
This is CJ Cumberland, WCHQ 100.9 FM. Join me every Monday through Friday for Midday with CJ, 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. I'm playing the best local and regional music of all genres. Remember, Crescent Hill Radio, all local music all the time.
Take it from Tara. Take it from Tara. Take it from Tara.
It is Take It From Tara time. I am your host, Tara Bassett, and I have 2 lovely ladies to replace the lovely lady that just left. I had a great conversation with Dr. Melanie Prejean Sullivan, the director of campus ministry from Bellarmine University, and she's specific about ministry singular as opposed to ministries plural because it implies that everything comes together for the greater good, which I absolutely love. And now I have Michelle and Molly Jones with me. Molly is, let's see, what would you be? On my left, unless you're backwards. Molly is on my right. Molly has short hair, and Michelle has long hair. And we're here to talk a little bit about, I've got to move this mic because I want to be able to see your faces. There we go. We're here to talk about the Pete Foundation, and I'm going to give them each a chance. Yeah, wave. There you go. Hi. You're on Facebook Live. This is awesome. We're going to give you a chance to talk about the Pete Foundation and how it got started and what it means and why we're talking about it today. And who wants to go first? You want to go first, Molly? Michelle?
I'll go first.
Molly, you go first. Hang on just a second. Hang on just a second. Let me... Here's what we have to do sometimes. It's called an impact adjustment. In the business of radio, sometimes things do not go as planned, which means that they have to. Okay, try it now.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's so
get
much
going?
better. Yeah, we have to. Sometimes we have to plug things in a little bit harder. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So Molly, talk to us a little bit about the Pete Foundation, and we've got a whole hour to go into as much detail as we need to. So give us an overall kind of an informational thing for someone who's never heard of it before.
The Pete Foundation is new. We started in December. We are recognized by the IRS as 501c3, not profit. And our purpose is to address the issue of mental illness in the adolescent ages. We realize that there's a significant issue around suicide, and we can talk about those statistics whenever everybody's ready for numbers, but there was a realization in December that simply trying to prevent suicide is not sufficient. We need to be looking long before suicide at the adolescent ages and the children that are suffering mental illness that later leads to suicide. Suicide prevention efforts are indispensable. We need them, and there's very strong efforts for young adults, high school children, and we need that, and we all need to support those efforts. We want to add to those efforts by addressing simply mental health, mental wellness for adolescents.
Well, and you know that I work in mental health as well
Yes.
at Bridgehead Mental Health Services.
Yes.
And although we don't have a below 18 population, we still deal with mental illness and suicide prevention in general. And
Right.
with children, I can only imagine how much more complicated it is because of maybe their inability to really comprehend what they're
Yes.
doing. And, you know, Melanie, who was here just a few minutes ago, was talking about the impulsivity associated with many situations with children in that they don't necessarily give it a lot of thought, give their stuff away, write, you know, farewell letters and go into the elaborate preparation that many people you know, have become used to hearing about, or that, you know, that's the depiction in movies and television. So tell me about Pete's situation. I want to know
Okay.
more about him personally and how this all unraveled for you.
Right. So that's what brought us to the realization that mental wellness in adolescence is of great importance. So Pete was one of 5 children, an identical twin. He had 3 brothers and Michelle, his only sister, but she's a great sister. And he suffered from depression and anxiety. And he actually didn't make it aware to any of his family, his emotional suffering, until about a year before his death. He hid it tremendously. He had friends everywhere. People loved to be in the same room that he was in. He was always kind, always considerate. If you look at one of our brochures, it's Pete with his arm around his brother, and that was so characteristic of Pete.
He was always happy, it seemed, you know. He was always the happiest guy in the room.
Yes.
He would laugh the hardest.
Made the best jokes. He had a knack with just creating his own little tongue-in-cheek and twisting words into really great jokes.
And he was fun.
Yep. I have a locket that has a picture with him and each of his brothers and his sister. And so I had to, you know, lockets are small, so I had to find a picture of him really close to each one of them, right? So I could put it in a locket. Well, that wasn't hard to do because he was always happy. He was always having fun with everybody.
Actually, I want to share something too, kind of along those lines that just popped into my head. So I used to always joke that, and you know, no offense to Matt or Jeffrey, but I used to always joke that Pete was my favorite brother because he was the one that I was closest to, because of what he would share and how much he wanted me to share my life with him, always, no matter what it was. And it wasn't...
What was the age difference between you two? Where were you in the family hierarchy?
I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest, and then who came next?
Pete.
Okay.
And he has a twin.
Okay.
Identical twin named
Okay.
Matt. And they're 15 months older than me, so we're very close in age. it wasn't until Pete's death that I found out that all of my other siblings felt like that too. They felt like he was the one the
Their
sibling they were
favorite.
closest to. He was their favorite because of how welcoming he was to everybody.
How easy it was to spend time with him.
Mm-hmm.
And how hard is it right now? It's been how many months has this been? A
7.
year? 7 months?
7
Yeah. Try not to
Not
count.
quite. Well, I'm curious as to how
7.5
you've
months.
dealt with it over the time, because you and I met very shortly after he passed away.
Yes.
And you said, we're getting this foundation up and running, and when we do, I'd like to come back and talk to you more about it. And it seemed to me like, it was right around Christmas last year.
It was.
It was.
And
yeah.
that's what's so hard to believe, is that, I'm curious as to how long it takes to get to a point where you can say that he was your favorite brother without breaking down and sobbing. I mean, you must still feel it occasionally, but you're being really brave right now.
And no, it depends on the day. I'm still at that point. I talk about him all the time.
Yeah.
And I love talking about him. Sometimes I laugh when I talk about him, sometimes not. So it's a lucky day, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good day.
Yeah. So, Pete's life ended on December 9th of 16. And so what happened the next day, Pete's oldest brother, we were kind of all gathered around the kitchen, and he said, "You guys, we have to do something. This is not okay." Pete didn't live for nothing. He was a great guy, and there is nobody that should go through their adolescence and their youth suffering from mental illness and then take their life. And actually, for my son Jeffrey, my oldest son, what he conveyed to us is it's the suffering that precedes it that he just could not stand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course it's horrific to lose your brother, for me to lose my son in any way, but then to start to grapple with his suffering.
And no. We
Yeah,
didn't
but
know.
your mom just said everybody loved him, everybody wanted to
Yeah.
be with him. He hit it very well, and this seems
Right.
to be the common theme, through people who say,
Absolutely.
it was such just a shock. It was such a surprise.
Right.
Right.
And so, but what happens is we don't talk about it.
Right.
We want to act like it's a shock. It was a fluke incident. Maybe if he had just broken up with a girlfriend, we'd blame it on that. Maybe if he had bad grades, we'd blame it on that. For Pete, there was really nothing to blame it on. I mean, he had a full scholarship at University of Alabama, very brilliant. He just no longer could handle the suffering that he said he endured since he was about 13. And when we look back, and we've spoken with many of his teachers and his friends all those years, they had no idea. And he's not alone. So Pete, a lot of times when I use the name Pete, for me, it's starting to simply mean the generic for any of our youth that are suffering and they don't have the ability to express it and get help for whatever reason. If it's the stigma, just the feeling that people around them will understand what they're trying to say.
Right.
Their own ability to understand how they feel. That's another thing that we're learning, is that a lot of youth, they don't even understand why they're feeling the way they feel, or they think
Right.
everybody feels that way, so just suck it up and keep going.
Especially in that age group when, your body's going through so many changes and your
Yes.
emotions are crazy because of hormones, and
Yes. Yeah.
you don't know whether it's normal. And we've discussed this, and I've been very open with you guys about the fact that I've suffered from depression and anxiety, which hit me, in my early 50s, along with some serious job losses and menopause, which is the other side of the hormonal changes that take place in your teens. And there is a tremendous amount of suffering associated, and I see it every single day at Bridgehaven. The good news is at Bridgehaven and in other places that you have the opportunity to voice your fears and your concerns
Right.
and get help. There is recovery And there is a whole lot of work that has to be done to gain that recovery. But in situations where the stigma is huge, where you don't want people to know that you have any kind of mental illness,
Right.
let alone the what people don't know is mental illness, which is depression and anxiety.
Right.
It's just an extremely challenging world to live in. And when you have that much pain and it doesn't have anywhere to go, I think that's what often ends up in someone ending their lives.
Right. So you asked, how we can talk about it and have moved to the point where we are just 7 months after Pete's
It's
death.
very soon.
And it's interesting because I was just talking to somebody Saturday night and telling him what we're doing about the Pete Fest. And I actually went to the funeral home for a young man that had taken his life just 2 weeks ago today. And but I didn't know him or his parents, but I had to go and meet them and give them my condolences.
Did you just see it in the
So-
newspaper?
We have mutual friends.
Mutual friends.
So anyway, back to my conversation Saturday night. So this other man tells me, Molly, don't beat yourself up about this. And he's thinking that I'm just like wallowing in Pete's death. And I explained to him that, no, what I'm doing is I'm moving forth with the love and the compassion and the friendship and the kindness that Pete had.
Yes.
And we are carrying it forth to do his work in the foundation and with the Pete Fest. And that's why we can keep going. That's what gets me up out of bed in the morning. It's what keeps me up late at night. So
It's pretty much becoming a life's
good.
work.
it is
Yes.
becoming a life's work so quickly.
And it's not something that will ever stop. I mean, it will have
Right.
it's just like there are always going to be people who have a need for medical services. There are always going to be people who have a need for financial services. Engineers, have their lives made for them because we'll always need roads built.
Yeah.
So it's a sad but true story that there will always need to be advocacy for people who have mental illness,
That's right.
especially if they've gotten to that point in their lives where nothing feels like it's ever going to change and the end of the suffering has to come.
Right.
Right.
Tell me a little bit, Michelle, about what your involvement in the Pete Foundation, or the Pete Fest, as you're calling it now, are they two
They're
separate
two different
entities?
things. They're two.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're two different things.
One is the fest to have an organizational fun of an event, and then the foundation is the actual
Yes.
organization underneath it.
So I like to put it this way: the Pete Fest, it's a music festival. It's just one of the projects of the Pete Foundation.
Okay.
It's just one of our initiatives. We have other initiatives that do deal a little bit more with research and medicine and funding research, and I think Molly, my mom, can speak a little bit more to that because I am a lot more involved with the Pete Fest.
Go ahead and
Which
tell
is-
us a little bit about the Pete Fest.
Okay.
We'll go back and forth. We'll bounce it.
Sure, yeah. So Pete Fest is sort of our social event. It's a 3-day music festival that we're putting on, and it's going to be in September of this year, September 8 through 10. It's a 3-day music festival with over 30 local and regional bands, 2 stages.
Many of the same musicians who you hear right here on Crescent Hill Radio.
Yes, absolutely, and they're all fantastic.
I love that.
I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. There's a lot of activities that we're going to have, and it's going to be tied in to the Pete Foundation because it has a similar mission. We're going to have awareness activities, mindfulness activities. We're going to have guided meditation, sunrise yoga, along with this big party and this big 3-day fun music festival. That's not just what it is. A part of it is to get the message across to our
Right.
community that this is really important, and these are things that we need to think about.
So it's going to be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Yes,
and it's going to be all day. It's going to be like Woodstock,
yes.
just constant partying.
Hopefully not so
Where
many.
it'll be-
It is going to be on a beautiful piece of property.
I was just going to say, where's it going to be held?
So it is in Louisville. It's inside Jefferson County. Is it in Fern Creek?
It's in Fern Creek.
It's in Fern Creek. So it's off Seatonville Road is the venue. But it's not too far from here.
Yeah. Just like a big field.
It's a nature preserve.
Oh yeah.
Actually,
Cool.
It's a beautiful 90-acre nature preserve. Wow. It's partially wooded, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Slightly rolling hills. It's
amazing.
really amazing when you're out there.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
And of course, all your promotional stuff is coming up on your Facebook page and on your website. So we'll know everything that we need to know about it before it gets too late.
Yes. I was going to say the best way to keep yourself updated about Pete Fest and the event and things we're going to have, artists, anything like that, is to follow us on Facebook or Instagram. It's at Pete Fest KY is where you can
That's
find
the
us.
Facebook?
That's the Facebook.
Or is that what's the Instagram?
I think it's also the same. I think it's the same thing. Pete Fest KY. Right, Lily? Yeah. Yes. And I want
Pete Fest Music Festival, Pete
Yeah,
Fest KY.
There it is.
There it
That's
is.
it.
And I'm
You got
willing to
it.
bet that if we typed in Pete and separate Fest, it would be okay. That's a
I'm sure it
cute
might,
little
yeah.
logo.
I
like that.
And we need to talk about the
Yeah,
logo.
tell
but
me about the
We'll talk
logo.
about
let me also mention on the website, back to the 90-acre nature preserve, there is a flyover video of the nature preserve, which is really, really nice to see if anybody wants to really see what the land looks like.
I almost wrote petfoundation.org. You can tell where my brain goes to. The Pete Foundation for Depression Prevention, which is pretty amazing because you stop and think about the fact that
Yeah.
depression is to a great degree preventable.
Right.
Suicide is certainly preventable.
Yes.
And when you do have a situation that is like what I experienced to a great degree, and I'm very grateful and very lucky that I didn't have the same outcome as Pete did. I was older and I had maybe some more life experience that maybe enabled me to get through it a little bit more, and the support of a lot of people, as I know he did too. But I'd never experienced anything like it in my life. And you said he had started to feel those feelings of depression as early as 13, but nobody ever knew because he was such a master at hiding things.
That's right.
But he didn't hide his emotions from you. You said
No.
he was extremely outgoing and
Yes.
and very funny. And
Yes.
people used to say to me, I can't believe of all people in the world that you would be depressed.
Yeah.
Well, who would have thought Robin Williams would be depressed?
Exactly.
You know, he was the happiest
exactly
guy in the
right.
world, and it happened to him. So the Pete Foundation .org is the website, and there is a lot of great information on there. So feel free to log on and you can look at the beautiful pictures, and then you've got a whole lot of information there too. And I'm going to just assume that Pete is
The guy graduating.
right there,
Yes.
Yes.
the cute boy.
Yeah. And there he's with his brothers, and the one on the left, they were hiking up a mountain there.
And
They
his
had fun.
his twin brother must be down here.
No, his twin
no.
brother is with the beard over there.
Oh,
You
isn't that funny?
Isn't that
Yeah.
funny? Yeah.
And then the poor brother who's down here behind the band.
That's Jeffrey.
The
That's
banner.
the one who said we are going to change the world for children. And he said, change happens with the youth, and that's where we're going to go to make change. And as they grow up, they'll become adults that grew up in a different world that we grew up in terms of understanding mental health and mental well-being.
Is there any sign of depression in either side of your families, mom and dad?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where was it most prevalent? Mom's side, dad's side, immediate?
I better not say. I'll get in trouble with my in-laws.
Okay, but you don't have to be specific then. But there was a problem
Sure.
with depression throughout
Sure.
a generation at least.
Yeah. Right. But the interesting thing is, so we thought that it was visible. That's the problem with depression and with anxiety.
That's right.
Is it's not always visible.
That's right.
So you could think that, oh no, there's no depression or anxiety in my family. But you really might not know right now because there could be somebody suffering it that hasn't simply expressed it.
Well, when I go and make presentations for Bridgehaven, I ask the people in the room to close their eyes. And then I ask the question, how many of you have experienced mental illness in yourselves or in a loved one? And 90% is the minimum of people who raise their hands.
Yeah.
And then I say, put your hands down and you can open your eyes again. And in some cases, it's every single person in the room. And in others, it's, scattershot around the room, but there are very few people who are not acknowledging in a loved one or yourself.
Right.
And, I do the Bridgehaven breakfast every December, the weekend after Thanksgiving. And 600 people are in the room. And I ask that question. And the response is enormous. So it's not a lack of awareness so much as it is, I think, a lack of doing something. And what you guys are doing is doing something.
Yes.
And so your son, Jeffrey, the oldest son, said, we've got to do something. How did it come to be that you actually created the Pete Foundation?
We formulated it right there in a conversation. I drove to Frankfurt the next day with papers for incorporation to get them filed.
Didn't waste any time. That's amazing.
When online, you can submit for 501c3 designation online with the IRS now.
Oh, that's great.
As soon as we had filed with the Secretary of State for incorporation, we filed online for nonprofit recognition. And we had a dear friend of the family, James O'Reilly. He's also CEO of Long John Silver's. I want to give a shout out to him. He's a great guy.
Hey, Jim.
He immediately sat down with us and said, let me help you formulate your goals, your objectives for the foundation. He met with us several times, over the next few days.
Wow.
Just brainstorming and talking and getting a mission written and a vision, right? You have to have all that stuff.
Everything in place.
And so to have James help us construct that out of our emotions and our knowledge and our understanding, but we weren't in a position to do it by ourselves. We needed to have a guide for that. So, and he continues to help us and bring us forward on the foundation and on the Pete Fest. So, and then Pete's obituary in the newspaper. It was all of his brothers and sisters were adamant that we were not going to tell a story that was anything other than Pete's full life. So, what a great guy he was, how smart he was, all the brothers and sisters and cousins and everyone who loved him, but that he suffered and that he chose to end his suffering by ending his life.
Wow.
We ran that in the Courier Journal, and we immediately got
I can imagine.
so much positive response. It floored me. I didn't imagine.
Yeah.
So we sat down, and I said, you guys, this obituary has done a lot for people.
Yes.
That I never expected an obituary would do anything for anybody. I had never been in that situation. And so I said, I think we should run this in the New York Times and the LA Times. Now, the reason for those two is the reason for those
idea.
two is kind of twofold. One is that they have big circulations.
Yes.
The other one is that we have a good connection to both of those
Okay.
locations. So Pete's grandparents, my parents, were born and raised in New York. We have a lot of relatives up there. So we ran the obituary in the New York Times and mentioned that his grandparents, are from Bronx and Brooklyn, New York.
Right.
We ran it also in the LA Times, which I was born in Los Angeles. So mentioning that his mother from Los Angeles. So it gave a good home base connection to the
Sure.
two locations, but it gave a lot of
Viewers and
readership for it. And it did just that. We've received letters from all over the country. And it's people that saying, we need this.
Yes.
Thank you. Keep doing this. And we continue to receive letters. We continue to receive donations. I was just like this kind of normal lady and normal mom. And I never thought about any of it. Michelle doesn't think so. I never thought about mental health, until Pete started suffering. But I didn't realize how significant the problem was in the society.
1 in 4.
And so when my oldest son said we should do this, we should start this foundation, and the other kids are like, yeah, we should do it, I thought, me as mom, yeah, I'll support you in that. Of course, I'm going to support my children. And I pictured myself banging on doors for years saying, please listen, this is important. We need to do something about mental health. It's a big problem in our society. I had no idea how many open arms I would receive and how many people would say, thank you, we need this. It's like people have just been waiting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to do this. And it's just, like I said, it gets me up in the morning. I mean, you realize this is what needs to be done.
It's the mental health version of MAD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You stop to
Very
think
good.
about what Lois Windhorst did all those years ago when she lost a child to a drunk driver.
Yes,
And
it
it's
is.
still such an incredibly
It is.
just effective way of getting the word out. And, I know that you're probably going to do this if you hadn't already, but I'm sure that there's going to have to be some sort of lobbying going on about mental health laws.
Right.
And I didn't even know this until I recently was doing some research on it, but members of MAD go to court appearances of drunk drivers.
Really?
And they ask for the maximum sentence.
Wow.
Wow.
So you stop to think about that
Yeah.
and the impact that it has on a jury to see
Yes.
a bunch of people sitting in the courtroom who are saying, this guy killed my child.
Wow.
And this guy killed all of our children. And I lost two very close friends to a drunk driver when I was in my early 20s. And it was a devastating experience. And you don't ever really understand how it feels unless it happens to you. And I say the same thing about
Yes.
mental illness. Unless you've
Absolutely.
experienced it in yourself or a close
Right.
loved one, you don't know what it's
Right.
like. Go ahead, Michelle.
But once you do, which is what happened to us, you dive in head first.
That's right.
And once you start talking about it to other people, then you realize they start talking about it to you, and you realize that all these people that you've known your whole life are all going through the same thing. There's so many people that I have talked to recently that I've known for forever, who have had a similar experience and who feel the same way.
Yes.
But this whole time, we didn't know. Nobody knew. So that's another reassurance that I have. That lets me know this really is something that we need to voice. We need to talk about it.
I'm going to do something really quick here that I had to interrupt Melanie Prejean Sullivan too, and it's one of those station business things that I hate to take the time to do, but I have to tell people where they can go to get their live music and their fun tonight. And we do have to have fun no matter how serious the conversation is. So from Bryce and Kevin on the Morning Jam, here's where you go tonight.
It's that time again, folks. It's time for the WCHQ Concert View for Monday, July 24th. All right, folks, got a few shows for you this Monday evening. How about out at Gerstl's Place tonight? You can go and check out the Serenades. Over at Headliners tonight, it's Raekwon, Rama with 2 L's, Tajay, and DJ Q. Over at Surface Noise Records, it's Tommy Stinson and Chip Sippy Fly Roberts. Over at Decca tonight, it's Monday Jazz with the Buzzard. How about over at the Mag Bar, it's the Threads, SCMB, The Kids Born Wrong, and Anna Faye. Over at the Highlands Tap Rooms tonight, it's Metal Mondays with Colta Frost. Over at the Zanzibar, the Winger Brothers will be out on the patio. Don't forget to tune in tonight at 8:30 right here on WCHQ 100.9 to Beyond the Music. Gavin's guest tonight will be members from the Empty Room.
This has been your WCHQ Concert View. If you've got a show you'd like to let us know about, go to CrescentHillRadio.com and hit the icon at the top of the screen that says List Your Gig.
List your gig, and these guys from the Morning Jam every single Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. And we here on Take It From Tara
Take it from Tara.
appreciate them
Take it from Tara.
very much because we are all part of the same station, WCHQ 100.9 FM, Crescent Hill Radio. I am joined by 2 incredible women, Michelle and Molly Jones who have started the Pete Foundation as a result of the suicide of their respective son and brother Pete, who suffered from depression and anxiety for several years before he took his own life. And we've been discussing the fact that the Pete Fest is going to be a great music festival at the beginning of September that we want to give you details on so you can participate in the effort to help folks who might be in the same situation and to spread understanding and present some solutions to the problem that exists in understanding what mental illness is about, understanding why someone with mental illness would want to end their lives, which is, something that is so prevalent in our society. And also to just talk about something that, that I've been meaning to ask you for the last half hour, and I haven't had a chance to do that yet. And that is, what were the first signs that you noticed about Pete that led you to understand that he was actually suffering from depression? Did he have the ability at 13 to say to you, I'm feeling really sad? No. Or would he have confided that in you? What did you sense, or what did you see? Because you said, you had supported him and you had given him the help that you could, and you can't really give someone a lot of help sometimes. You really can't. Mm-hmm. But what were the key? I mean, I guess I'm looking for triggers or signals that we can pass along to other people to kind of know what to look for.
I don't know that it's going to be that easy for us. Pete was just one situation, one person.
Right.
For Pete, what I noticed was weight gain. A guy who had always been very fit and athletic, there was weight gain. That in itself wasn't enough, but then he started not doing well in school, missing class. And then it was like, hey, Pete, what's going on? And then he just told me, he said, I'm just depressed.
Wow.
And I thought something had just happened. I said, well, did something happen to make you feel depressed? And he said, no, I've been this way my whole life.
Oh, my God, that must have been a shock to you.
It was a shock and something very hard to understand. And that's, from a parent perspective, that's something that is a problem for me. You raise children and they have all kinds of information out there about stages that kids go through and how you handle the terrible twos and, how you do potty training, whatever it is, and how to handle when they start driving and drinking, how you handle drinking, what do you do about them thinking about doing drugs, but never any information about the mental well-being, really, of your child. I mean, he never acted out. He was never a bully, and he never bullied. He was just your normal, great kid. So, for that to be thrown at me then, when he was 22, I was struggling with what to do for him. I didn't have any knowledge about it, and I, my oldest son, Jeffrey, I've heard him say many times that he doesn't fault himself for his brother taking his life. He faults society. Jeffrey doesn't feel like he failed Pete. He feels like society did. And I agree with that. I didn't fail Pete. We all did. And here now when I say Pete, I mean that generic person, that generic young person that's suffering from poor mental health, from an emotional issue. We're all failing them.
What do we need to do to change that?
We need to increase awareness about the prevalence of mental illness and, the issues of mental health in adolescence. We need to increase understanding of what those varying mental illnesses are and the mental conditions are. We need to remove the stigma. Of course, that comes from awareness and understanding. We need to increase care options or treatment options for children. And those treatment options, I want to say right now, there's things we're not even thinking of yet that we need to make available to children to just change the world that they're growing up in so that they can better understand how they feel peers can better understand how their friends feel. We need to remove cost barriers to treatment.
Mm-hmm.
That's an insurance issue that needs to be addressed. Those are the things that we need to do. A few minutes ago, you likened it to what MAD did to drunk driving.
Mm-hmm.
And I've likened it to what Susan G. Komen did to breast cancer.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
To breast cancer. She said, this is not good enough. We need to make a change. And that's how it is in mental health. 15% of adolescents that suffer mental illness will take their own life. We just saw in the paper
Staggering.
Suicide in middle school age children has doubled in the past 10 years. For ages 10 to 34, it's gone up by 25% in the past 15 years. And that rate of increase is continuing to increase.
Well, and I was told a terrifying story the other day by someone I literally just met. We were having a conversation. It's one of those, you meet a stranger and you get into the most intense conversation that you could ever imagine. That's something that is just wild. And this woman who happened to be a nurse who works in a hospital said a 4-year-old came in with his mother and apparently was in a store, and the mother said the child just went ghostly white. And he said, "Do you see them?" And she said, "See who?" And he said, "All of the dead people." And she's thinking, could he have seen the Sixth Sense? Haley Joel Osment, who could see dead people. But it wasn't that. And, I think there are two possibilities. Either the child was very gifted spiritually and actually could see the dead, or the child was showing symptoms of very early schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And so, the child now goes into a psych unit and is plied with psych medication and may be in that system for the rest of his life if something doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And, members at Bridgehaven talk to me all the time about the voices and about the feeling of not wanting to live. There's a difference between wanting to kill yourself and not wanting to live anymore in many people's estimation. And I experienced that too. I wanted the pain to stop, but I didn't attempt suicide. And then there are people who say, well, they're one and the same. And there's a different feeling about this for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's not, Dr. Sullivan was saying to you, it's not always cut and dried. Right. It's different for every person.
Right.
And I think that's what's so hard, is that people who want to start organizations like the Pete Foundation may have a different experience than you do. And so you're going about the same thing in a different way. And there's got to be some way to develop, a clearinghouse. And I say this in all the things, if every lost and found pet could be taken to a clearinghouse instead of having 6 or 7 different lost or found pet sites, maybe they'd be reunited more quickly. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I go back and compare everything to pets, but if people were in organizations, instead of 15 organizations about muscular dystrophy and 15 organizations about cancer, the same with suicide and the same with mental illness, if it can be centralized, I think so much more could be done and we could achieve so much more quickly.
Yes, I think you're right.
So when you go out into the community, and I'm assuming you're doing this, talking to people who will be sponsors for you and who will help to sustain the Pete Foundation. It's fledgling months. 7 months is nothing in comparison to the lifetime that you will have to influence the outcome of people with mental illness and hopefully preventing suicides. What do you say to them that makes you stand out? Because people always say, well, it's like on that stupid show Shark Tank. What do you have that's different from anybody else? What do you say that's going to stand out, catch their attention, and hopefully help you with your foundation to accomplish things like the Pete Fest?
I think what stands out about us is that we're looking at the adolescent ages. That, yes, our goal is to eliminate suicide, but it's by eliminating the suffering that precedes it. And to do that by changing the world, really, that our children are growing up in. So it's not by trying necessarily to just identify a young child who's suffering from mental illness, but rather to make everybody more aware of what mental illness is and how you can seek help and you can express yourself. And if somebody expresses themselves, others who hear it need to be able to understand and not shy away from it or be afraid of it. We're so afraid of mental issues.
Oh, absolutely. It's the last great stigma, I swear.
Yes.
You know, first it was women and the suffragettes, and then it was African Americans in the 60s. And, well, it's way before that. But we've dealt with all of these subgroups of humanity and, you know, LGBTQ. And it's like now people are becoming, every time I turn on NPR, there's a story about mental illness. Every single day, there's a story about mental illness. And I heard a couple of this morning as I was doing my errands and driving around, and I'm just thinking, with all of this information being disseminated, why are more things not being physically done?
Right.
And I'm imagining the Pete Foundation turning into something like providing a location eventually, which would be like Bridgehaven, you know, where someplace where kids could go in a just like a non-psychiatric hospital environment where you're not in a lockdown, but where you come to learn and you come to play and you come to help others. And I'm imagining that older kids could help younger kids, which peers do. And I can just see endless possibilities for you. So when Pete Fest is over this year, and you're going to probably do this for years and years and years to come, what is the next plan? What is the next step that you want to take? Are you seriously thinking about getting people to lobby for you and making that a point of, you know, bringing this to the attention not only of our state legislature, but, you know, going to Washington?
Yes.
All of the above, Tara.
All of that. Well, even before Pete Fest is over, we are going to be working on establishing our infrastructure, larger infrastructure for the Pete Foundation, to include, yes, we need that lobbying effort. We need a significant awareness campaign. We want to have a national impact. Of course, we're here in Louisville, so Louisville will be our first impact location. And Louisville's a great place to be doing this. We are the compassionate city. We really are. And we're obviously going to need to do significant fundraising and have that ongoing. We will be working on other social events other than just the Pete Fest. I don't want to talk about those right now.
No, because we have to focus on Pete
We'll wait
Fest.
till they're a little bit more, formulated.
Right.
One
I don't wanna make any
component,
promises.
one component of the Pete Fest that Michelle didn't talk about too much is Sunday. So she mentioned that we have over 30 bands. Those are to play on Friday and Saturday. Sunday.
Are these all day Friday, all day Saturday? Or is it, okay, so what time does it start and end?
Friday, every day the gates open at 9, so you
Okay.
can come in at 9 a.m.,
Okay.
set up your campsite, walk around.
So
check
you
out
want
the
people to camp
vendors.
there for the whole weekend?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
there's
fun.
Oh, yeah, there's camping.
Oh,
And it's going
good.
to be awesome.
There
But-
will be camping.
Yes. But I think, so gates open at 9 a.m. every day. I think Friday the music starts around like noon.
Okay.
Saturday it starts at like 10, so it's a little earlier. And then Sunday's it's kind of the special day. So since our foundation deals with adolescents and younger, we focus on the mental health and health of the younger generation. We decided to kind of dedicate Sunday to that generation, to those younger people that are our neighbors and our friends that we went to school with or whatever. And so on Sunday, the bands that are playing are younger. They're like, I don't want to say kids, but they're younger age.
Yeah. I know we have them like 14 and
Yeah.
probably
There's a
12.
range.
There's an
Yeah.
age range,
Cool.
But yeah, there are some young kids out there, and actually one of the bands, and they're awesome. They're such a good they're talented. And I think they're in high school, but their drummer is like 12, and he's so good. I love it. He's
What's the name of the band?
Swamp Root.
Cool.
Yeah, they're great, and I'm really excited.
I'm going to write that down and book them on the Homegrown Radio Hour.
Yeah, write it down.
Another one, the young woman that contacted us recently.
Oh yeah,
She's 14.
She's awesome.
She's amazing here in Kentucky.
Her voice, yeah.
Just
So
amazing.
so yeah, we have all this interest because people find out about this and they get in touch with us and they say, I love your cause. There's
Awesome.
Everybody who you talk to or anyone who finds out about this is just interested in being part of it because of the cause. And a lot of people, especially a lot of younger people, kind of turn to music as a refuge.
Yeah, as an outlet.
As an outlet or to express their emotions, you know? So anyway, Sunday we're gonna have younger bands, and it's gonna be a lot of fun.
All right, let me list off a few of these, 30 of them. And I'm telling you, they're right off the playlist of Crescent Hill Radio. The Delta Saints, Dr. Dundiff, Roots of a Rebellion, Malcolm Holcomb, Nick Dittmeyer and the Sawdusters, Cheyenne Mize, Jeremy Pinnell.
It's Pinnell.
I think it's Pinnell. Apple Latin. I love dancing
them.
to their music. The Local Honeys, Blind Corn Liquor Pickers, Frederick the Younger, C2 and the Brothers Reed, Johnny Conquero. I love that.
They're
Conqueroo,
awesome.
Johnny
They're-
Oh, Conqueroo.
They
I love
are
them.
amazing.
Conqueroo. I've
Yes.
never heard of that. That's so cute. Big Atomic. Mama Said String Band.
Yes.
My dear friend Katie did it. These Fine Gentlemen, whom I also love. Beloved Youth, Hot Iron Skillet, Electric Garden, Light Treasons, Voodoo Economics, which is great. Bendigo Fletcher, the Pro Depressants, and interestingly, Melanie Prejean Sullivan's son is in a band too, which I find fascinating that we're talking about all this at the same time. Tiki Bastards, Funkasaurus, Tsunami Samurai, which is that great electrical guitar sound of the 1960s and 70s television show. Scott Whidden, The Placebo Effect, Jonesy, The Last Origin, and how do you say that? Ossifer? Ossifer. I haven't heard of them.
Like if you've had too much to drink and
Oh,
you're trying to say,
Ossifer.
officer.
I love that. Hello, Ossifer. Meadow Ryan and Swamp Root. And Meadow is one of my favorite people in the whole world.
Yes.
She is tremendously talented.
Oh, yeah.
And I can see her jumping in to do something like this because she's just all about nonprofit work.
And then this is interesting. We have a collective called the Louisville Lips. And they're going to be playing. You can read off if you want to read off who's
the
part of
the Louisville Lips.
Yeah, it's a collective of.
So it's Karaoke Club with who else?
With Shane Cody and Zach Appleby of Houndmouth, Cheyenne Mize, Carly Johnson, Chris Rodeheffer, Meg Samples, and Mark Charles Heidinger of Vanderveer.
Oh, that sounds like
So-
that's a great.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
going to
It's a
play
great-
Paul Simon's Graceland album.
Oh,
It's
wow.
an awesome group.
Yeah.
I can't wait. They're gonna. That's on Saturday night of the festival after the headliner. They're gonna play the entire album, and it's gonna be so good.
And they've come together just for this cause.
Specifically
to
for
do
this.
Yes.
So if you need to find out more, you can go to thepetefoundation.org online, petefest.thepetefoundation.org.
Or you can, if you go to petefest.com, so petefest.com.
That's also a
It'll
way to
go
find
there,
it.
yeah.
Perfect.
It'll take you there.
So when we were talking earlier, and we've got about 7 minutes left, which is great. We were talking earlier about Pete Fest and the Pete Foundation being two separate things. The Pete Foundation has an ORG, so it's a nonprofit. Are the costs of tickets into the Pete Fest tax deductible as well?
Yes, because the Pete Fest is actually just a DBA, a doing business as name.
Okay.
So Pete Fest is the Pete Foundation. They're one and the same. So they are
So any contributions made
to the Pete
through
Fest.
Pete Fest or just to the
Yes.
Pete Foundation are all tax
Yes,
deductible
it's
because
all
they're
one-
501c3s.
right.
And
It's all
yeah,
one
so
corporation.
all proceeds from Pete Fest, so tickets,
Go to the Pete
anything,
Foundation.
go to the Pete Foundation.
Right.
I didn't even ask. Oh, here's Louisville Lips right here,
Yeah.
right in front of me. That's going to be a great combination too. I love that.
Yes.
What will the charge be to get in?
It's a good question.
Okay.
Do we know yet? Have we
Yeah,
decided?
So if you do a Friday only, I think it's $25.
Right.
Saturday only is $29, and Sunday only is $10. And then I think a weekend pass is
I think it's 49.
Is it
says-
49?
It says
49.
weekend
Thank you,
pass
Lily.
tier 1. What is tier 1?
so that's
$39 plus a $2.94 fee.
So tier 1 is sold out.
Okay.
Isn't it?
Good.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I think
Are those
our-
the people who get up closest?
No, they're the people who bought their tickets first.
I see.
they were the early birds.
Clever. Then tier 2, which is available for sale now, $49 plus a $3.44 fee.
There's a processing fee for
Okay.
Yeah, Eventbrite.
that.
And then the weekend pass tier 3 is $59, and the day of weekend pass is $65, which is why it makes sense to get your tickets
Get
early.
your tickets early.
And then the campsite, weekend campsite reservation, $20.
So that's if you want to camp, but that's not per person. That's per campsite. So
Okay.
like if you come with your friends and you all bring a tent, that's the
$20
cost.
a site.
Yeah,
Got it.
$20.
And then the RV camping without hookups, so you better have a generator and a good-sized sewer system. $20 for that campsite, and you have to get those before September the 8th. And that's what it's, basically I think that's going to be the problem, cramming more people in there than you can.
Right.
$125 for a VIP weekend pass. And you can also make a donation to the Pete Foundation while you're online doing all this, which is really cool. What do you hope to achieve, just let's say, in the next 2 months? What kind of change do you want to see made, and how are you going to accomplish it one family at a time?
I think the change that I hope for in the next 2 months is starting to remove the stigma.
There you go.
At least people starting to say, hey, we need to start to remove the stigma. And if you notice, you mentioned our logo, so it's the elephant.
So cute.
And that works
I love
because
that.
what are we dealing with? The elephant in the room.
Yep.
Right?
Right in front of you.
And one of our hashtags is Stomp the Stigma.
I'm going to have to start using that.
Yeah.
Stomp the stigma.
Stomp the
Let me write
stigma.
that. Let me write that down so I don't forget it. Everybody who's listening, Stomp the Stigma, which is the hashtag of the Pete Foundation. And what was social media director over there, Lily McDonough, who we have not even introduced yet? Come on over here and stand behind these young women, and let's get a picture of the three of you. You ready for this? 1, 2, 3. Stomp the stigma. What are the other hashtags we need to know about, Lily? Pop on that microphone right there, right here in front of Michelle.
Rock the Elephant is one.
Rock the elephant. Okay.
Those are the two main ones.
Those are the big
I
ones,
think that's
Stomp
what
the
we
Stigma
use.
and Rock the Elephant. Was the elephant significant in Pete's life?
Yes, it was. Pete went to University of Alabama. The elephant is their mascot. Everyone thinks of Roll Tide,
Yeah.
which Pete said all the time, but the elephant was the mascot. So, and Pete loved the University of Alabama. He loved U of L, and he loved sports. So we wanted to use the elephant, and right away it seemed like just the right symbol.
Yes.
And then as we thought about it more with the issue of the elephant in the room and Stomp the Stigma, we said
Fantastic.
that is it. So we haven't officially yet, but I feel like the Pete Foundation will also adopt the elephant as its symbol. We had originally adopted just for Pete Fest.
Yeah, but it sounds like it'd work.
Yeah. Do I have just a minute to say one
You
other
have
thing that
2
I'm
minutes,
really
actually. I'm going to
excited
give
about?
you 2.
I just, earlier I said we want to have a national impact on this, and I talked about
Yeah.
running the obit.
Of course.
Well, I'm going to, and I'm going to read it so I don't miss any. The places where we currently have team members for the Pete Foundation working from where they live.
Okay.
Louisville, Lexington, New York City, Chicago, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, Minneapolis, Houston, New Orleans, and Atlanta, and Greensburg, Kentucky. Our photographer's in Greensburg, Kentucky. So people in all those cities,
That's
we
amazing.
reach together, we work across the internet, and we're making this happen.
Throw out one last thought, Michelle, about Pete Fest.
Pete Fest. It's going to be fun. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Pete Fest KY. We're also going to have a couple of pre-shows that I'm really excited for that are going to be before the festival. So there's one at U of L, at the Red Barn. There's one at Goodwood. That's the official kickoff party.
When's that going to happen?
It's Thursday before the festival.
Thursday before the festival, okay.
September 7th.
I'm going to put your website address right on my Facebook page, so it'll be a little bit easier for people to find. And I would encourage everyone who is interested in more information. Obviously, you can look at my page now, but the Pete Fest is a whole cool thing that's going to be part of the weekend of September 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Yes.
But the Pete Foundation is the long haul. We're going to be in this for the long haul, and we'll see more and more special events popping up. If you are interested in the Pete Fest or in the Pete Foundation, please check out the web, and you can look on my website to find it. Thank you both, Mrs. and Miss Jones.
Thank you.
And Lily.
Thank
You have to share all your pictures with us now.
Yes.
Post them all so that we can see them. I'm really excited about the fact that I get to do this again on Wednesday, which is always part of the delight of my week, and that is the 26th. Are you ready for this, ladies and gentlemen? Latifah Mina, the animal communicator, will be on the set. And this is your opportunity to send questions in advance. You can email them to me if you know my email address. If you don't, you can private message them to me on Facebook. And send those in whenever it's convenient for you so that Latifah can get to you. But we always have more questions than we have time. So my suggestion is to you, if you want to get your question answered, send them in soon. And then we're going to have a couple of wonderful people with AMVETS. And this is going to be an interesting interview, too, because I'm a very proud patriot. I have two parents, World War II Navy veterans. Mother is still living, and she's 96, and there are very few World War II veterans left. And so AMVETS is an organization that really does a lot to help veterans from all the wars. And they're going to be on talking about exactly what they do and some of the special events that they have planned too. So I will see you all on Wednesday at 4 o'clock for Wagon Wednesday with Latifah Mina, and Take It From Taro follows that. And thanks so much to the Joneses for being here with us for the Pete Fest and the Pete Foundation. We're going to look forward to tremendous things to come from you. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
You're listening to WCHQLP, Louisville, Kentucky. 100.9 FM, Crescent Hill Radio. All local, all community, all the time.